thousands of Israeli soldiers will be leaving the battlefield in the coming weeks. U.S. officials have been urging for this shift toward a lower intensity phase of the war. It comes as civilian deaths in Gaza top 20,000. But as far as a timeline for when the fighting might stop, Israel says it won't happen soon. The country's defense forces are anticipating to be at war throughout the year. Joining me now is Harley Lippman, a foreign policy expert and geopolitical analyst. Harley, good to have you. I want to start with this developing news of a top Hamas leader killed in a blast in Beirut. How significant is this death for both sides of this conflict?
Well, it's very significant because it's going to be an indicator of what the future is going to look like. Israel has made its mission to take out all the Hamas leadership and the people who participated in this barbaric massacre of Israeli civilians, women that were raped and mutilated. Israel is going to make sure that justice is carried out, and they're going to take out Hamas leaders wherever they hide.
Yeah, we'll get more to those objectives a little further into this interview, but we've seen these periodic sort of updates that a Hamas leader has been killed here or killed there. Getting to the most recent news, thousands of Israeli troops will soon withdraw from Gaza. Help us understand what this means for the next phase of this war.
Well, they're withdrawing from Gaza largely because Israel has accomplished a lot of its goals by taking out a lot of the Hamas terrorist operations in northern Gaza. But also, Israel's economy is suffering badly. Everybody in Israel serves in the military. Even after your service of 3 years, you have to go into reserve duty every year for 1 month. And the problem with that is Israel's economy is reeling because these people have full-time jobs and they have to get back to these jobs. So that's one reason why they're coming to have closure with a lot of the large fighting in Gaza. Also, the Israeli population has moved out of harm's way and they want to get back to their homes. They're living in friends' homes, hotels in northern Israel because they're afraid of Hezbollah. Along the border with Gaza, people are congregating in central Israel because they're afraid of getting rockets from Hamas. So these people are desperate to get back home. So for all these reasons, the Israeli military is now pulling out somewhat, but it's going to be, as your commentator mentioned a moment ago, it's going to be a long war. Israel's going to do everything to make sure that its citizens are safe because that's the mission of Israel. You know, Israel was created to be a safe haven for Jews. And not since the Holocaust have more Jews been murdered because they're Jews. So Israel, it's essential. It's part of their very core of existence that they send a message to the world that if you're going to murder Jews just because they're Jews, we're going to do everything possible to hunt you down and justice will be done.
That's a really important context there, Harley, understanding that Israel's economy is suffering as this conflict kind of drags on. The war itself will continue throughout the year, according to the IDF. How do you see that playing out? And what could it mean for the humanitarian crisis in Gaza? As we mentioned a bit earlier, more than 20,000 people killed. The Gaza Health Ministry saying that, you know, most of those people are women and children. What's the outlook?
Well, it's terrible that women and children are being killed in Gaza. That's not the intent of Israel. Israel could wipe out all the Palestinians overnight if they wanted to. They're a superpower militarily. But the Hamas terrorists are hiding among the civilians. It's the most densely urban area in the world. And it's extremely difficult. Plus, Israel wants to minimize their own casualties. They don't want soldiers getting killed. There are all these booby traps. Hamas is just waiting for them in tunnels, in hospitals, all over. So it's going to take a long process, and managing the least amount of Israeli soldiers' casualties and the least amount of Palestinian civilians. But who's responsible for that? It's Hamas. They're using their people as human shields. They're doing this to make sure that that Israel can't find them. But Israel has to do this because they have to protect their citizens as any nation would. I mean, just think about this. for the last 3 months, Hamas has been firing rockets into Israel every single day. This is a strong military force, Hamas. Over New Year's Eve, 70 rockets were fired at Tel Aviv. It's the equivalent that after 9/11, just think of this. What if after 9/11, Al-Qaeda was firing missiles into the United States every day for 3 months? That's what Israel's experiencing, and that's the equivalent for Israel.
Harley, before we let you go, I want to talk about the latest ruling from Israel's Supreme Court restoring its ability to block individual government decisions it deems as unreasonable. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has blasted the decision as judicial overreach and said it undermines solidarity during a time of war. What's your reaction to this move with the last 40 seconds we have here?
Well, from the Israeli secular side, they feel that there's no protections from government overreach. There's no constitution in Israel. There's no separation of or checks and balances. For example, there's no independent. The only thing they have is the judiciary. Actually, that's the only way to put a check on government power. And it's like the United States. The government is a right-wing government, very religious, and they want the country to reflect that. And the Israeli Supreme Court is saying that you need some check and balances. Otherwise, it undermines democracy to the point that it's questionable if there really will be a democracy in Israel.
Foreign policy expert Harley Lippman. Harley, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.